annual report to kesho. It's
Okay, then we are back. So let's finish up with these things. So where are we? Okay. So we had discussed the different kinds of designs. We had discussed the. Let me see if I'm recording. I may not be recording. Okay, it's recording. We have discussed the different kinds of designs, and we need to see the other kinds of design, which is case study design. We also need to see, so there's case study design. Um, there is cohort. I've already talked about cohort. There is cross-sectional. There is longitudinal. There is sequential design and action research design. So we just take you through those ones that we've not discussed, beginning with action research design. Action research design is where you are trying to understand a problem that has been developed, a problem or a subject, a matter, a theme that has been developed for research. You are trying to understand it, and therefore you divide your research into two, which we call action, problem stroke action, or problem stroke strategy. So you have a problem that you are investigating, and you have an action set of actions that you need to perform in order to understand that problem better. Those are called action researches. All right. Now, basically, the essential of action research design is to follow a kind of a characteristic cycle whereby an understanding of a problem is developed first, then plans are made for some form of strategy or actions to be able to investigate that problem. So the intervention is carried out, and then the intervention is the actions that you carry out to investigate that problem. That intervention is what we call the action, okay, which makes it an action research. So the strategies or the actions are also carried out in a cyclic process. you perform them in a cyclic process, meaning that you keep doing them, yeah, in a cyclic manner. You continue until you continue doing those actions, investigating that problem until a sufficient understanding of the problem is achieved. So it is iterative in nature. For instance, uh, you have a research of there is a problem. A problem is we can create a problem like there is a problem. Let's talk about a problem like the I think COVID-19 is better to focus on COVID-19. So if we are focusing on COVID-19 and we are talking about a problem like the rise of numbers, the rise of COVID-19 infections, that is one problem we want to investigate. How it is occurring, why is it occurring, how it can be mitigated. So that is a problem that is there. And then there are cyclic actions that we can take to investigate that problem. Now, what are some of those actions? You can take actions like go to hospitals, investigate the numbers with the nurses, go to other medical centers, investigate the numbers, go to research centers, COVID-19 research centers, investigate the numbers, let's have those actions. Go to medical centers and go to research COVID-19 research centers. So we may be doing that for like a month. Every day we go investigate what is the rise, what has caused that number to reduce or to rise. We write those causes and such things because we're investigating a problem of the rise of COVID-19 infections. We go again tomorrow. We go and investigate. Are there new cases? The new cases are of people who are of which age? What were the surrounding factors for these infections to reach these victims? We record that. We go the following day, we investigate. So we do that in a cyclic fashion, in other words, iteratively, repetitively, until at day 30 or whatever time of that research, because the research has to be time bound, right? At day 30, let's say if that is the time of research, at day 30, we have a concise information. We have concise information of the problem we are trying to investigate, because there will be a pattern. We may go there for 30 days, and for all those 30 days, among all the victims that were found, there was almost 8 out of 10 of aged or elderly victims, right? And almost every time the cause of infection was sitting with someone else who was infected and they didn't have a mask. Let's say that, right? So almost every time. So we're going to discover a pattern as we do that research. And that's why that is the intention of doing it cyclically, or iteratively, repetitively. Because the idea of doing it repetitively is that it helps you develop a pattern, and you can actually investigate a pattern when you are studying a problem. So action research design is a design that you document, like any other research design that you document for action researches. Action researches is where you have investigated a problem and then you go into a sequence of actions, iterative actions, to investigate that problem. Okay. Then let's look at case study design. What is case study design? Case study design, as we had said in the previous stages of our unit, a case study research is where you're doing a research in focus of a particular area. For instance, if you are doing the effects of COVID-19 pandemic on e-commerce or on online buying and selling, you can do that study and then you say case study of Jumia. Case study of Jumia. So basically, a case study is a particular area that you focus on. It's a particular area that you focus on during your research, because you cannot do that research widely in all the areas that are affected. For instance, if right now you are discussing about COVID-19, effects of COVID-19 pandemic on e-commerce, You cannot research on Alibaba, you cannot research on Jumia, on Kilimall, on eBay, Amazon. You cannot research all of them. And also some of them, the reason why you can't research is because proximity to those areas may be an issue. But you can research on Jumia because you can actually visit Jumia outlets, and you can actually probably collect data from there. You can ask people questions there, staff can ask people questions there, right? So case study is where are you focusing your research in or on a place or a particular topic, all right? Like for instance, you may be talking about the effect, the rise, the problem of the rise of COVID-19 infections in Kenya, case study of Kenyatta National Hospital. All right. Why? Because probably Kenyatta National Hospital is there is proximity. You can actually go there. You can plan yourself. Can be going there to do the research from there at different times as you will be allowed. But you cannot go to every hospital that deals with COVID-19. Nairobi, Eldoret Hospital, you cannot. So you choose one particular area. Okay. So that's what a case study research is. So a case study design is a design for a research which you're going to use a case scenario. And a case scenario is a physical area, a particular physical area where you're going to focus your research. Are we together? So that is what we call a case study design. A case study design. A case study design is for case study researches. Okay, for case study researches. Moving on to longitudinal design. A longitudinal design is a design for a longitudinal research, just as a cohort design is a design for a cohort research. An exploratory design is a design for an exploratory research. Experimental design is a design for an experimental research. So a longitudinal design is a design for longitudinal research. Now, what is a longitudinal research? A longitudinal research is where one which it follows the same sample over time and makes repeated observations. Now, a sample is a sample of respondents or things that you want information from. So for instance, let's talk about interviews. You can pick a particular group of people and choose to interview them repetitively, all right? So you choose to interview them repetitively. So in a longitudinal survey, or a longitudinal research, for example, the same group of people is interviewed at regular intervals. What that does is that it enables researchers to track changes over time. Why? Because people can give answers differently in different times, and also to keep relating those changes to the variables that might explain why those changes occurred. Okay, so you normally find this especially in crime, when you're investigating crime. Particular suspects might be questioned at every time. Now, the reason why we do that, we normally question suspects repetitively, and even the same questions like where were you, and you have asked them like the third time, right? So you can have an interview scheduled for every 15 minutes. So for every hour, after every hour, there will be somebody who will come and it may not be the same person. There will be somebody who will come in and probably question the suspect, but it is still the same kind of questions. But we also want to see, the reason why we do that is because people behave differently with time. So you may find that at the first interview, there is a way they answered, and the second interview, there is a way they answered. And during the third interview, the responses were a little bit different, not very different, but a little bit different. Okay, so we also kind of record those changes. We also record those changes and also try to know why have they changed their responses, or why are there those slight differences in their responses. So it's called a longitudinal design because we do it, we don't confuse it with action research. This is where you take a sample and you ask it different times. You ask it, or if it's people, you ask them, you interview them different times, and you try and record those changes. Okay. Moving on to the one which, so we have discussed longitudinal, moving on to, where are we? Moving on to sequential design. A sequential design is for a sequential research, okay? And what is a sequential research? Sequential research is that which is carried out in a deliberate, staged approach where there are different stages to activities. Now, an experimental research is a sequential research. An experimental research is a sequential research. Just a minute. I let in somebody who wants to join the meeting, but they cannot. So a sequential research is a research that takes place in a staged approach, using a staged approach where there are different stages to doing different things. Okay, there are different stages to doing different things. So an experimental research can actually be classified as a sequential research, and therefore the design you write for a sequential research is called a sequential design. Okay. So that is it for research design. Let us remember what we have just discussed. First thing is, what is a research design? Is a plan. It is a concise plan of how the research is going to be conducted, and it contains crucial information of all that the research concerns. And then the features or the contents of a research design. We have discussed what should we include in a research design. I want you guys to unmute so that now you can interact with me. I want you to unmute so that I can ask questions. For instance, I need to ask like, what are the contents of a research design? What should you include in a research design? What should you include in a research design? Somebody? What should you include in a research design? What should you include in a research design? Yes? Somebody? Talked about the nature of data you're going to use, like qualitative and quantitative data. You are going to include also the time the research is going to take place. You're also going to talk about the place where the research is going to occur. If you are dealing with a case study design, that is the budget of the research. We talked about. What did we talk about? What should you include in a research design? Labor division, if you are. The methods, yes. Time scale, methods, yes. Sources of information in the research. Yes, where are you going to collect that data, right? Yeah. What else? Okay, moving on. What are the qualities of a good research design? What are the qualities of a good research design? Variables and hypotheses. These are just elements. These are terms associated to research design. They are not contents. They are terms associated to research design. Data analysis, that is true. How data is going to be analyzed, that is true. Information of how data is going to be analyzed, right? And also we talked about what makes a good research design. What makes a good research design? What makes a good research design? Or what makes a research design good? Number one, it has to be accurate, meaning that information should be clearly spelled, should be accurate, specific, should also be availability of time and money for the research work. That is also in the components, or what the contents of a good research design. So the qualities of a good research design, we've talked about accuracy, we've talked about specificity, we've talked about it should be clear. When you talk about things like distance, moving from point A to point B, you have to say the number of minutes drive, minutes walk, hour drive, hour walk, things like that, things that are specific. Even the distance, talk about 10 kilometers, 5 kilometers, 700 meters, such things like that. Yeah. It should also emphasize on what? Ideas and discoveries. Should emphasize on ideas and discoveries. It must be as fair as possible. I want to guess that what you mean is that it must accommodate for changes, right? It must accommodate for changes or future uncertainties. It must accommodate for changes or future uncertainties. Yeah. And also it must be orderly. All right, I think that is a thing. It must be orderly, it must be as fair as possible, it must be systematic. True, it must be systematic, it must be orderly, it must show how activities are going to be performed from A to Z. So it must be systematic. That is true, Shiko. Yeah, and then so we've discussed that, and so we need to remember those things about research design, so that you can be in a good place to answer any question when you are given a question on research design. So this video is going to be, it has been recorded, so just together with the other videos, they are going to be uploaded to the YouTube channel. Uploaded to the YouTube channel. I intend to upload all these. As you've observed, I've not actually uploaded any of these videos. I intend to upload them. I intend to upload them just before you do cut 2. Just before you do cut 2. There are very many things to catch up on. So I intend to upload them just before you do cut 2, so that they can all be there. So that brings us to the end of research design and research design types. So we are going to stop at that, and then in the next class we are going to we are going to discuss sampling. We're going to discuss sampling, right? So I want you to really focus on this particular things. I want you to focus on types of research design. Okay, I want you to focus on that. That would be good for you. Focus on that. We already discussed them, but just focus on them. Normally ask these kind of questions in section B, right? Describe this, describe that, describe. So it's important that you know. And it is not just about, it's not about cramming, it's about knowing what they are. Okay, knowing what they are, you can actually be able to explain, and you can picture in your mind such kind of a research design. Okay, so focus on these types of research designs. and then we are going to continue from there. So that brings us to the end. I hope that you have understood. Hope that you have understood, and therefore I want to end the meeting so that you may also have your break and you can also do whatever you need to do. Okay, Muhia Wango, you're right. Just after I'm using the names that Zoom provides. There's no problem, okay? All right. So that is it for today. Have a good time. Does anyone have a question? Any question? Any question? So if there is no question, then I will wish to end the meeting at that. So then we're going to meet in the other coming sessions. So have a good evening.